You've even got, I can't believe this, it's not only direct discrimination, it's even got indirect discrimination. The political opinion is here. It's here, religion or belief. Because your political opinion is a belief, because it's what you believe in. So if you believe that, people should, if the government shouldn't be charging people, higher taxes or lower taxes, or if you believe that, the Conservative Party, but the word belief is, for all purposes, political opinion, because that is what you believe the country should be run as. I believe the country should be, I believe the country should be Liberal Democrat run. I believe the country should be Labour Party run. Right? Or I believe that the national religion of the country should be, Buddhism or whatever. That's it. It is covered by it. Further to that, though, government casework, when you are engaged in proceedings with the government, you are fulfilling an executive function, right? And that the executive functions of government are covered by this act. It's not like you're just someone going to the pub and the pub landlord says you can't go in there. You're engaged, right? Now, when you, if someone punches you and then the police bring a case, you're engaged in the case. The police, the CPS, everyone is under government employment, right? But it's not just that. What if you're bringing a civil case to get divorced, right? It's brought under Her Majesty's government proceedings. It's executive function. You have the right to enter those functions. They can't really stop you discriminating against that process and procedure. And, the requirements of it require payments and so forth from bank account, which it brings into it. The fact that the companies are formed under the government anyway, and what a bank is, it is an executive function of government, really, a company, because the government's allowed them to form a company, and then the company's formed and has a certificate, and that company operates by the laws of England and regulations. It might have its own policies, but those policies have to comply with the law. So it does have to take into account, you can't have direct or indirect discrimination. And further to that, Tice's political party is protected because it's formed to bring cases to the government, and he's entitled to do that because the government have licensed him to bring cases to the government and run candidates, and even any person can, for their particular case, as that case may be, whether it is running a petition on the website, and that's protected. You've got you've got consent to do that. You don't need someone in the government to say, oh, you're doing an executive function because I say you are. No, you have the right to that executive function in connection with Parliament, because the law gives you the right. It's not one person who asks permission or not. Like, policemen make decisions whether they're going to prosecute or not. If you don't agree with them, you get a private prosecutor, but the proceedings and functions that the private prosecutor enters and engages in are an executive function, which you've got the right to take up, regardless of if police don't. The CPS can take over the case at a later stage if they want to, but when we're doing petitions to the government, and when Tice is doing a political party, you've got to realise that is an executive function. It's a government function you're engaging in, which you've got the right to enter yourself. You don't need permissions. And there are real problems with the petitions committee at the moment, rejecting people and so forth on certain criteria. It's just as bad as Rees-Mogg, with his GB News. And while these programmes are still backing him, they're traitors, because they're even going along with all this bullshit that the banks are coming out with. I don't know why. Sunak and the banks must be having a real jacuzzi laugh in a hot tub in their time off about this whole bank thing. Sunak must be in a hot tub with the bank managers having a right old chuckle with Rees-Mogg turning up about, we've got Tice and everyone on the main news and everyone's believing that we can do this and do it. And then they even got these, people turning up now, going along with it. Yeah, what we're going to do about this? Yeah, they can do it. We'll have to do something about it. No, they can't do it. Will you stop lying? The protected characteristic is on here. It is the belief. Now, it's not just walking into a pub if you're a private person, right? Businesses have to comply with it with their staff, right? Employed for all purposes. When you are bringing a case to the government, you are under executive function of the government. You're employed yourself. Well, not employed. You're not getting paid for it because it's voluntary. Although the Crown prosecutors are getting paid for it. So it's a miracle we've got a duty solicitor. Look, I don't have to pay for this solicitor. He's defending me. I'm only engaged in these proceedings because they brought charges against me. You have been charged. Now you're officially engaged in an executive function of proceedings because we've charged you. Now you've got special rights. Well, I have to prove my innocence. Well, why don't you use them then? Like, for example, you need to investigate, gather evidence, put witness statements out in the newspapers, ask for witnesses to come forward. You're charged with powers. You are now officially got to defend yourself, right? Now, I need evidence for my defence. Well, why don't you use the Criminal Law Act? If you believe that, the other person did the crime and they're guilty of it, not you, then you can't be obstructed. You've been charged with powers for defence. People don't understand what happens when they're charged. It's not all over. You've been charged officially. You are now engaged in your proceedings. You are now given executive function of powers. When you've been charged like a battery, it's not all over because you can prove innocence. You've had electric shock on you with the shock, but you are officially engaged. That means that anything that you do can be recognised for the case because you've got to prove your innocence. So you can investigate, publish, ask for witnesses to come forward. All these things legally protected because you are charged with executive function. I don't think you understand that. Just because you've been charged doesn't mean you're a criminal until you're found guilty, although I don't know what's going on with all those people who were detained and so forth without a fair trial. There's something suspicious going on with this government, very dark, because when you're charged, it just means you've been accused and it's official that the case has been brought. So when you're doing things and walking around, when the police says, what are you investigating this for, what are you doing that for, the newspaper asks, why are you publishing this notice to a petition for witnesses to come forward? Well, you show them your court papers. I've been charged. I have the right to publish in the newspaper. I want witnesses to come forward for my defence. Here's my court papers. I am charged. You might as well show them your police badge with a freaking shield on it. Although you're acting in defence, you're charged. This is the thing with the right to petition. When you bring the case, you're not being accused. You're charged with powers to investigate, to do the rest of it. But not, luckily, you're not in defence. Civil cases, there's no criminal usually. It's to try and get a decision in your favour or against your favour. Immigration's had the better of us. And I think Nigel Farage doesn't know the thick of it. I don't think Nigel Farage knows the thick of the effects of immigration on this country. We've been turned into Barbie dolls. GB News and Talk TV, it's like Ken and Barbie. Jimmy Dore must know what we're talking about with this, because this is the main focus of Jimmy Dore's programme, pointing out these Barbie and Ken figures who really are corroding all these laws and legislation, all the intelligence, the corrosion of understanding. Where, Rishi Sunak doesn't need to know what 3 means because it's 3, and as long as he's got 3 and, you've got none, then he's got 3 and you've got none. But what does that mean? Ha ha ha. It means that you're skint and he's not. Is there any further meaning to this? Is there any further representation? Does this mean anything? Does this legislation apply to scenarios, people, places, companies? Does it have a complex meaning rather than a plus sign or a divide sign? There's 8 divided by 2 is 4. That's as far as Rishi's brain needs to go. He doesn't need to apply the situations. He doesn't need to apply what executive consent and function means. Where does it come from? What is engaging with the government? How are you engaging a function? What is a function? What is a case? You know, I've had enough of Rishi Sunak's mathematics. I've had enough of it. The intelligence of England is corroded. It is so corroded that we are now dumpling people. We've been transformed into plastic toy figures, and I've had enough of it.